A cool little feature of Anime happens to be the stroke exposure tool. This just allows you to create complex shapes, but then have them reveal themselves by an animated stroke. The way I want to demonstrate this to you is in kind of combination with another feature, and that happens to be the follow path tool. There's another movie on follow path that covers some of those functions in detail, so I'm going to be skipping through some of those. If you'd like more information, you can see that movie. But for this case, let's go ahead and begin with, let's import our snail. If you have access to the working files, you can go ahead and find them and import Adobe Illustrator file, snail.ai, and choose Open. That plunks into our little scene here. A couple things as we get going. With the follow path function of Anime Studio Pro, when you have objects lined up that you want to conform to a path, they need to be lined up along the x-axis. If you have an object that you want to have follow a path, it needs to be lined up layer-wise along the y-axis. So what I need to do is to go ahead and, with my shape tool right here, I'll select all. And then I'm going to reorient the snail up. And I'm going to come to the layer tool right here, and I'm actually going to shrink the layer. And the reason I'm using the layer tool to control the scaling is that it more successfully scales the stroke weight that comes with the imported artwork. So when I click off of this, then the stroke weight that came in with the snail remains the same. I'm going to leave this here for now. And we can see we've got snail imported right here. Let's go ahead and change the name of the layer file to stroke. I'm going to go ahead and simply move this above the snail right now as we draw it, so it'll be easier for us to see this. I will go ahead and come to our add point tool. And let's make this a real simple path. I'm going to click and drag, and then click and drag. Now the snail is going to be moving along the path here, and we'll animate that. But what I want to do is have this kind of trail of slime that comes after the snail. This is where we will be using the stroke exposure. So I've drawn our path right here. I'm going to create the slime path, but then duplicate it so that the reveal is identical for the path that I want the snail to follow and for the slime to follow. So with this done, let's convert this path to a shape we can go ahead and add some color to. I'll come to the paint bucket tool and click on this line. Now it activates it and turns it into a shape. It inherited the feature we had here of a black line, which will change in just a second. But I want to come over to my Shape Select tool. Click on this line now. It kind of breaks up a little bit. It's trying to do a checkerboard there that we can't quite see. We need to change the color of this to, I don't know, something a little more slime colored. Sure, like that, and choose OK. And then I really want to thicken this line up. I'm going to take a guess here at how thick that needs to be. How about 35? Okay, we've got this set. We're at time frame 0. Let's go ahead and use our stroke exposure tool. It's over here in the fill area right here, and it's this little tool that's kind of in an S shape where part of it's thick and part of it's thin. When I click that, we can come up to our contextual menus across the top. There's a start percentage and an end percentage. At any time in the animation, you can have how much of this line is revealed animated. The end percentage, if we only wanted half the line animated, we could enter a value of 50. If we want the line to start a quarter of the way down, we can enter a start percentage of 25. Well, in this case, I want the start percentage at 0 when we advance, say, to time frame 1. And I'll want the end percentage at 0. I want this thing to go away. So I'm entering 0. It does go away. Let's go ahead and advance to time frame 1. Now I'm going to go ahead with the stroke exposure tool. Simply click on the stage here. It sets a keyframe remembering the current settings. Then at, say, 72, I'll come down to that by clicking on the timeline. I'll go ahead and enter a value here of 100%. And click OK. When I drag the time frame marker and we scrub the timeline, we see this line exposure revealing itself. Pretty cool. Let's connect that to our snail right now. What I'm going to do is come back to time marker 0. I'm going to take this stroke and duplicate it with the duplicate layer tool, rename it slime, move this below the snail, because with a follow path function, the path that's followed has to be on the top of the object doing the following. I'm going to select snail, and now I'm going to say, well, let's have it follow the path. So I'll choose the follow path tool. The path reveals itself to us, and I'm going to click down here on the beginning. It goes down to where the path starts, and the origin is what's lining up with the path. I'm going to double click on the snail. This brings up our layer settings. There's a little option down here called Rotate to Follow Path. I'll enable that, click Apply. We'll see our snail turn, and I'll choose OK. Again, very important thing to remember is that the layer, how it aligns itself with the path, is along the y-axis. So as you work with shapes, just keep that in mind. With this done now, let's go ahead and move the Step Forward tool to frame 1. The Follow Path tool on the snail layer, I've set it 0, and I'll just click OK, sets a keyframe. Let's go down to frame 72, and I'm just going to enter a value here at the top of 100, and there we go. I'm going to turn off the stroke here at the top so we don't see it. And now when I scrub the timeline, we'll see our snail moving along faster than the slime. So this is where we add a secondary keyframe right here. We can come to our slime and change the percentage of that to, let's come to our reveal stroke, to something more like 50. And fine tune our animation that way. Now when we go ahead and come back to our snail and scrub the timeline, everything works correctly.